Picture a wild dolphin. It has lived its whole life in the open ocean. It has never been to an aquarium, never been trained, never been given a fish by a human hand. To this dolphin, humans are large, strange, slow creatures who occasionally appear on the surface of its world and should probably be avoided. Now imagine that dolphin has a fishing hook stuck in its fin. The line is wrapped so tight it can barely swim. It is in pain. It cannot fix this itself. And then it sees a human diver. What happens next is something science is still trying to fully explain. The dolphin does not swim away. It swims closer. It holds still while the diver works to remove the hook. At one point, it actually rotates its body to give the diver a better angle. It is a wild animal that has never met this person, never been trained to trust humans, and has every reason in the world to be afraid. So the question is simple. Does it know what is happening? Does it understand that this stranger is trying to help? The answer is one of the most surprising things researchers have ever found in the study of animal minds. And it will change the way you see every wild creature you ever encounter. Before we get to what animals understand, we need to understand what they are fighting against when they let a human help them. Every wild animal is born with an alarm system already running. It does not need to learn to be afraid of predators. That fear is already built in. And for most wild animals, humans are at the very top of the danger list. This makes sense. For hundreds of thousands of years, if a human got close to a wild animal, it usually meant one thing. That animal was about to become food, or a coat, or a trophy. The animals that survived were the ones that ran fast enough, hid well enough, or stayed far enough away. So when a wild animal gets trapped or injured, and a human walks toward it, something powerful happens in its body. A chemical called cortisol floods its blood. Its heart rate shoots up. Its muscles lock. Its whole body goes into emergency mode. A study published in the European Journal of Wildlife Research found that animals caught in traps show higher stress levels than animals that have been injured by other means. Being trapped, unable to move, with a predator approaching, is one of the most terrifying experiences a wild animal can have. And then the human gets closer, and the animal's brain is screaming one thing: this is the end. So when a trapped wild animal stops struggling and allows a human to help it, it is not doing something small. It is overriding one of the deepest, oldest instructions its brain has ever been given. That takes something. The question is what? Let's go back to that dolphin. On the night of January 11th, 2013, a group of divers were in the water off the coast of Kona, Hawaii. It was a night dive, dark except for their lights. A wild bottlenose dolphin suddenly appeared in the beam. It swam directly toward one specific diver, a man named Keller Laros, who had been diving these waters for over 20 years. Laros noticed the dolphin was not moving normally. When it got close, he could see why. A fishing hook was buried in its left pectoral fin. Fishing line ran from its mouth through the hook and wrapped all the way around the fin. It was cutting into the animal's body and dragging on every stroke. The dolphin stopped moving. It hovered in the water directly in front of Laros and waited. Laros reached out and began working on the line. At one point, the angle was wrong and he could not reach the tightest part of the knot. The dolphin watched him struggle with it. Then it slowly rotated its body, turning the fin toward him, adjusting its position so he could reach. It took 8 minutes. The dolphin surfaced twice for air and came back down both times to let the work continue. When the last piece of line was cut free, it stayed near the divers for several more minutes before swimming away. Laros told NBC News afterward, "He swam right up to me. The way he came right up and pushed himself into me, there was no question this dolphin was there for help." Now, a scientist would correctly point out that we need to be careful. Maybe the dolphin was just exhausted. Maybe it was in so much pain it could not flee. Maybe its stillness had nothing to do with understanding and everything to do with having no energy left to fight. These are fair questions, but they do not explain why the dolphin approached in the first place. An exhausted, pain-filled animal does not typically swim toward the thing it fears most. It does not rotate its body to help a stranger reach the source of its pain. Something else was happening. And to understand what, you need to understand how smart some animals actually are. Here is something that will make you think twice the next time you are outside. Wild animals are building profiles on you, not on humans in general. On you specifically. Professor John Marsluff at the University of Washington spent years studying how crows recognize and remember individual human faces. In one experiment, his team wore specific masks while trapping and banding crows. Later, researchers walked around the same area wearing either the trapping mask or a different neutral mask. The crows who had been trapped attacked the trapping mask. That part is not surprising. What is surprising is this: crows that had never been trapped, had never seen the original event, had only heard about it from other crows, also attacked the mask. They had learned from other crows which face was dangerous. They passed that information on. Years later, crows that were not even born during the original event were still mobbing that face. Crows gossip. They remember, and they pass that memory to their children. But here is the part that almost never gets talked about. Crows also remember kindness. Gabby Mann was 8 years old in Seattle when she started sharing her lunch with the crows near her home. She dropped food regularly, always in the same spot. The crows noticed. They began showing up when she arrived, and then, one day, they started leaving things behind. Small, shiny objects placed exactly where she left the food. Over time, she collected dozens of these objects. Researchers who studied the case said the crows were likely engaging in what they call reciprocal gifting, a social behavior that means you gave to me, now I give to you. We have a relationship. We keep score. score. Think about what this means. A crow watched a human be kind to it over a long period of time. It built a mental model of that human as a specific individual who was safe and generous. And it responded with a behavior that had no survival benefit at all. It gave gifts, not because it had to, because something in its brain recognized the relationship and wanted to maintain it. That is not a machine responding to a stimulus. That is a mind keeping track of who is good and who is not. Here's where the story turns into something much bigger than just whether animals understand help. Researchers in Japan ran an experiment with capuchin monkeys. These are small, clever primates who are very good at watching what happens around them. In the study, a human would either help or block a monkey trying to reach food. That is straightforward enough. But then came the part that stopped scientists cold. The researchers added a twist. They made the monkey watch a human being unhelpful to a completely different third party. Not the monkey, not anyone the monkey knew, just a stranger. Then they offered the monkey food from that same human. The monkeys refused it. They had watched someone be unkind to a stranger, and they decided that meant something about what kind of creature that human was. They were not just tracking whether someone was good to them personally. They were making judgments about character based on behavior they had witnessed toward others. A monkey sat and watched you interact with someone else and decided what kind of person you are. This is not just intelligence, this is moral reasoning. At a basic level, it is the same thing humans do when they judge a person by how they treat a waiter. Now apply this to rescue situations. Animals that live in social groups, dolphins, elephants, crows, wolves, are constantly reading the intentions of the creatures around them. They have to be. Their survival depends on knowing who is threatening and who is safe. That ability to read intent did not evolve only for members of their own species. It evolved as a general tool for reading behavior. When a human moves slowly, does not make aggressive sounds, touches the trap instead of the animal, and does not make the fast, direct movements of a predator about to attack, that behavior does not match anything in the threat catalog that animal has built up over its lifetime. The alarm system searches for a threat pattern. It finds nothing that matches. And in that gap, something different becomes possible. Not trust exactly, not understanding the way a human understands, but something. A pause in the fear. A moment of waiting to see what happens next. A small window where the animal stops fighting the situation and watches instead. And sometimes in that window, the help gets through. In December 2005, a female humpback whale was found tangled in crab trap lines 18 miles off the coast of San Francisco. 12 crab traps, each weighing 90 pounds, were hanging off her body and dragging her down. Ropes were wrapped around her mouth, her fins, and her tail. She had been struggling for hours just to keep her blowhole above the surface. A rescue team arrived. 4 divers entered the water carrying curved knives, knowing that one accidental movement from her tail could kill any of them. She stopped moving the moment they entered the water. For over an hour, a 50-foot, 50-ton animal held still while complete strangers with knives worked around her body. At several points, she adjusted her position, rotating slightly, extending a fin, moving in ways that gave the divers better access to the ropes they were cutting. Not randomly, deliberately. When the last rope was cut, she did not simply swim away. She circled back. She swam slowly around each diver, one by one. She nudged them gently with the tip of her jaw. One diver, James Mosquito, described it to the San Francisco Chronicle as feeling like she was saying thank you to each person individually. Scientists are careful with that word, gratitude. It is a big claim for a creature whose inner life we cannot directly observe. But here is what we do know. Humpback whales have a type of brain cell called spindle neurons. For a long time, scientists believed these cells existed only in humans and great apes. They are linked to empathy, to complex social awareness, to the ability to quickly understand other beings in social situations. Humpbacks have them too. The whale that circled those divers had the neurological equipment to do something more than simply react. Whether she used it the way a human would is a question science cannot yet answer. But the behavior, circling back, nudging each individual diver separately, staying when she was free and had no reason to stay, does not have a clean, simple explanation. Something registered. Something in that enormous brain took note of what had just happened and responded to it. What we call that response depends on how big we are willing to let our definition of understanding be. So, do wild animals know when we are trying to help them? The honest answer is, we are not sure. Not completely. Not in the way you know when a friend is being kind to you. But here is what the research actually shows. Dolphins seek out specific humans when they are in trouble and hold still while those humans work on them. Crows remember individual faces for years and bring gifts to the people who treat them well. Capuchin monkeys refuse food from someone they watched be unkind to a stranger. A humpback whale spent over an hour cooperating with strangers who had knives, then stayed to nudge each one of them before leaving. None of that is an accident. None of that is just a scared animal running out of options. That is intelligence reading a situation and making a decision. The reason this matters goes beyond the science. Every wild animal you will ever see is running a continuous assessment of the world around it. It is watching movement, reading behavior, building a picture of what is safe and what is not. That picture includes you. Every time you are around a wild animal, you are part of its data. Your behavior becomes part of what it knows about humans. And some of those animals talk to each other. Crows share information about faces across generations. Elephants carry social memories for decades. the data spreads. This means the way you treat the wild world around you is not a private act. It echoes through species whose minds we are only beginning to understand, through nervous systems that have been reading the intentions of other creatures for millions of years before humans arrived. A crow somewhere is watching you right now, running its pattern recognition, building its file. The question is not really whether animals understand when we help them. The question is whether we understand that they are paying attention, and that what we do in those moments is something they remember. You might as well make it worth remembering.